and each evening for networking. Check the conference agenda for more details on that. All right, now I'd like to introduce Dr. Ksenija Gasic with Clemson University. She is going to give us a glimpse into the future and tell us about some new selections from Clemson's Peach Breeding Program.
Thank you, Sarah, for a nice introduction. I would also like to thank the organizers for inviting me to give this presentation. In this presentation, I will cover program overview and challenges, describe breeding timeline and activities, and conclude with description of advanced selections included in replicated trials. South Carolina is second in nation with fresh market peach production. Therefore, the importance of having the peach breeding program to develop cultivars adapted to specific environment conditions in the state. Breeding program has been rejuvenated in 2008 after 25 years of dormancy. First crosses were performed in 2008 with the main goal of combining fruit quality with disease resistance and tolerance, specifically bacterial spot and brown rot in the chilling requirement window of 600 to 800 kilo hours. As the program developed, additional traits were included, as you can see on this slide. Main challenges the program tries to address are climate change, specifically warm winters, insufficient chilling, avoiding late spring frosts and pathogen pressure. Also focusing on consumer demands to improve the post-harvest fruit quality, nutritional composition, low pesticide input. Producer needs to ensure sustainability, cost effectiveness, and disease resistance in the material released, and retailer education, which is very important for marketing and sale of products based on the fruit characteristics. Peach breeding program timeline is showcased on this picture, where first level of selection is performed in first 5 years, within 3 years from crossing until the fruit can be evaluated in the field. Once the seedlings are producing fruit, the fruit quality and productivity is evaluated for 2 years, and first level of selection is performed. Advanced selections are grafted on rootstocks and planted in advanced selection trials, where they are evaluated in field and the lab for the next 4 to 5 years, or for at least 2 fruiting seasons. The most promising selection are moved to the third level of selection, though clonally propagated and planted in the replicated trials. You can see the number of crosses that were performed so far in the program, number of seedlings planted, evaluated, and selected in the second level of selection. Up to 10 advanced selections so far are included in replicated trials. In South Carolina, we have 4 replicated trials, 1 in North Carolina, and some selected selections were included in Alabama and Arkansas as well. Recently, we selected additional 3 advanced selections and propagated them to plant them next year. Selection in the breeding program is based on phenotypic evaluation in the field and the lab, and in applying markers to remove seedlings with unwanted traits. Presently, 1 DNA test is used to predict fruit tolerance to bacterial spot. Based on this test, seedlings are selected at the greenhouse stage, and only those that are predicted to be tolerant are planted in the field trials. This way, we reduce the number of trees planted in the field and increase the efficiency in field evaluation. This test has been improved using more precise and less expensive markers, and is used for both planning crosses and culling seedlings. With the improved test, we have analyzed all of the seedlings in the experimental field and removed those with fruit susceptibility to bacterial spot. As Massive Fruit Research Farm does not have bacterial spot optimal environment, we do not see it in the field, except this year. So crosses planned since 2011 have used this information in parental and seedling selection, but hybrids from 2008 to 2010 crossing seasons were selected based on the fruit quality and productivity observed in the field, as you will see in the description of advanced selections that are already included in replicated trials. Here you can see the ripening window of the advanced selections included in replicated trials, from SC1 to SC10. SC11 to 13 are newly selected additional selections that are being considered for inclusion. Also, selections with later ripening times, late August and early September, are being evaluated for inclusion in replicated trials. In this presentation, main focus will be on those already included in replicated trials, and others will be just mentioned. Most of the selections that are right now in replicated trials come from crosses made in 2008 to 2010, before we had markers to select against bacterial spot fruit susceptibility. And as I said, as we do not have the environment at the master farm where first and second level selection is happening, we had no way to test for bacterial spot. Therefore, the selection was done primarily based on phenotyping traits for fruit quality and productivity, bloom and ripening time. In the next slide, selections will be organized by ripening time. SC2 is the earliest selection in the replicated trials. It blooms 1 to 2 days later than Caro Red, and it has a good bud density, similar to Caro Red, but much better than higher than Spring Prince. It ripens mid to end of May with the fruit size of 2.5 inch, exhibits some splits, but has excellent eating quality. It also has a high tolerance to bacterial spot. What we observed so far, it produces high pack out volume. It has a better taste than Spring Prince and Crimson Lady, consistent size, firmness, and excellent eating quality in our trials. Although this is the first year when we've seen the fruit in replicated trials, and we observed tip softening, which might not be so suitable for wholesale producing. SC9 is the next one, with the bloom time first week to mid-March in heavy bloom density, showy flowers. It ripens at the end of the May, beginning of June, similar to Ruby Prince and Crimson Lady. It has a beautiful fruit with excellent 2.5 inches size and about 160 grams and size consistency. Blush is almost 100%, very firm, round, with a good flavor, acidic. It's clingstone and non-melting, and tolerant to bacterial spot. SC1 ripens first week of June. It has early to mid-bloom period, similar to June Prince, but with much higher bud density. Fruit size is excellent, higher than 2.75 inch. It's normally more than 200 grams. Exhibits about approximately 3% of splits, has an excellent taste with sweet and low acid. It is a slow softening type of fruit, which means that it stays firm on the tree and requires few days at room temperature to soften and become juicy, melting, and freeze-thaw. It also has a high tolerance to bacterial spot, which we predicted by markers, but also saw this year in the field. In a summary, it's an extremely high pack out volume, size consistency, firmness, and excellent eating quality after a few days at the room temperature. Otherwise, if you harvest it based on the color and size, the fruit and eat it immediately, the fruit will be very crispy and very firm. SC7 selection ripens the mid-June and blooms slightly earlier, last week of February and first week of March in 2019, has moderately heavy bloom density and showy flowers. It's Beautiful fruit with excellent size, approximately 3 inches. Normally has a heavy crop load in our advanced selection trial at Master Farm with a perfect round shape. It exhibits some splits. It's very firm but juicy, crisp, slow to soften, holds firm as well over a week. It has a low acidity and non-melting clingstone fruit at commercial ripening, but freestone and melting after a few days at room temperature. Unfortunately, bacterial spot susceptibility was revealed this year in replicated trials. SC8 has early to mid-blooming period, similar to June prints, but with much higher bud density. Ripens around June 15, similar to summer prints. Size is easily over 2 3/4 inches, about 200 grams, and about 3% of fruit exhibits splits. It has excellent acidic classic peach taste. It's crunchy, firm at commercial harvest, has a slow softening that again requires few days at room temperature to soften and become juicy, melting, and freestone. It is tolerant to bacterial spot. We saw some symptoms on leaf this year. Approximately 20% of leaf were affected, but not dropping. In addition, all of these slow softening type of selections could provide opportunity for reduced number of harvest times. So you do not need to do the early harvest. You can delay it and do it at the time of second or third harvest to increase the sugar accumulation in the selections. SC10 blooms slightly earlier than what we would like. Last year it bloomed in February, and this year first week of March. It has a moderate bloom density, showy flowers. It ripens in the first week to mid-June, from 4 to 15 June, similar to summer prints. Fruit is attractive, white flesh, excellent flavor, juicy and aromatic, firm and crunchy at commercial harvest. It has a good size, 2 3/4 inch on average. It's clingstone and oblong. Fruit is tolerant to bacterial spot, but leaves are medium tolerant. SC3 blooms late, within the last 20% of all material at the Master Farm. It ripens between June 25 and July 6, slightly later than Wimblow, and close to the same time as Scarlet Prince. Fruit size is slightly above 2.5 inches, about 70 millimeter in 2020 and 200 grams, which I think we did a better job at thinning. Has no splits, good eating quality and acidic type of taste with 10 to 12 degrees of Brix. The blush is almost 100%. The flesh type is slow softening and when fully ripe on the tree. After a few days at room temperature, it's juicy, melting, and freestone. It displays high tolerance to bacterial spot, and it was also observed the same in the field. Fruit set and yield on grafted trees was very good over the last 3 years, and here you can see the fruit harvested this year. It had full crop in 2017 when late spring freeze damage ruined the crop. So it has a high potential in breeding and for growing in our region. SC4 is in a similar ripening window as SC3 selection, blooms about March 10 to 12, so it has a later bloom time and non-showy type of flowers. Ripens around the end of June, beginning of July, slightly earlier than Contender and near Scarlet Prince. The fruit is of excellent size and good firmness. It softens moderately fast. Its shape is slightly oblong with a suture bulge in some years. Brix on average is 15 degrees. It's a semi-freestone, very good flavor and melting texture. About 60 to 70% blush depending on the year, and some splitting is observed. Fruit is tolerant to bacterial spot, but some symptoms were observed on leaves this year. SC5 blooms about the same mid-March, has a showy flowers, ripens around July 10 to 21st, near Contender time. It has a good yield, average size for season, it's uniform, few to no splits. Average is about 60 to 70% of blush. This is the fruit harvested this year with approximately 14.5 degrees Brix and very low acids. Taste is sweet, flesh is firm and freestone. It has a crispness like July Prince even when ripe. This selection had a full crop in 2017. This is the picture of fruit harvested in 2017 and displays size consistency and good flavor and low acidity. SE6 is in a similar ripening window and bloom time as the SE5. This selection caught our eye because in hybrid trials it had a fruit 600 gram when it was on its own root. Similar characteristics passed on the fruit when we grafted it on Guardian, and this is the fruit observed this year, here and here on the tree. And the selection is also included in replicated trials. It ripened first time this year, and this picture shows performance in the replicated trial at the Yonsis that Dr. Melgar is evaluating. And we observed some light symptoms of the bacterial spot on the leaves, but not on the fruit. Fruit is large, no splits, beautiful, has 80% or more blush, clingstone, firm, juicy, acidic, and melting. SE13 is the earliest selection that we have so far. It blooms in February. It bloomed in February in 2019, has a showy flowers, ripens around May 8, about a week earlier than Caro Red. Fruit is attractive with a nice size, 2 3/4 inch on average. This year we recorded diameter of 70 millimeter on average and 150 grams. Flesh is juicy and sweet, about 10 Brix. It's firm, but exhibits the soft tips. Some splitting was observed in both years, and the flesh is clingstone. It is a heavy producer that will need to be evaluated further. SE12 has a similar bloom time window, and ripening time is slightly closer to Caro Red than SE13. The fruit is beautiful, average is just over 2 inches, and is large for the season, similar to the previous one. Also has some splits. What we don't like is a blotchy cheetah type of blush that we'll see if it's going to show up the same in replicated trials. It has a good taste, 9.5 degrees Brix. Some fruit displayed slight tips, some egg-shaped, the flesh is clingstone. Fruit is tolerant to bacterial spot, and some symptoms on leaves were observed this year. SE11 blooms about mid-March, has a moderate bloom density and non-showy flowers. It ripens June 20 to the end of the June, slightly earlier than Windblow. It is a beautiful large fruit, 2 3/4 inches on average, and this year we saw 70 millimeter diameter on average and 180 grams fruit. Fruit is firm, acidic, with a good taste, approximately 11 Brix, which is average for the season. Texture is smooth, melting, and flesh is freestone. It has a heavy crop and full blush. It will be interesting to see how it performs in the replicated trials. We have also observed several late ripening accessions with good fruit quality. Unfortunately, this year we observed in the field that all of them have bacterial spot susceptibility. So we'll include them in breeding, and hopefully we can combine good quality with late ripening and bacterial spot tolerance. In addition, potential selection to be evaluated for organic or low fungicide input productions were evaluated. Material showing high tolerance to brown rot in lab experiment was planted in orchard at Masser Farm that is kept fungicide free, and brown rot was evaluated post-harvest at 3, 5, and 7 days. And you can see some of the standard cultivars. This is the Rich Joy, if I'm not mistaken, from Byron, that is recently released. And China Pearl, this is the selection from North Carolina Breeding Program, O. Henry, Ruby Prince, and so on, and some of the selections from Clemson program. This is the selection that ripens late July, has some bacterial spot on fruit, but after 7 days in the post-harvest experiment, 60% of fruit was covered with the brown rot. So the next one is a selection that ripens mid to late July, has a sweet, excellent taste. It's a freestone melting and bacterial spot tolerant, and that's this selection performance. And it has also less than 60% of the brown rot infection on the whole fruit surface. And the last one that looked promising is selection that ripens by the end of July, beginning of August. And while it has an excellent fruit quality and brown rot tolerance, the best in all of this trial, it also is susceptible to bacterial spot. All three selections are used in breeding and might be of interest for organic producers, with maybe reduced spraying and not completely in absence of spraying as well. I would like to acknowledge the funding received through the USDA funding for rosebreed projects and Clemson University experimental station support from South Carolina Peach Council and Department of Agriculture. Also, special thanks to all of the people that were part of the breeding program from its beginning till today. Many undergraduate and graduate students were involved in data collection and the breeding material evaluations, and this is the current crew with John Mark as a technician and Trey Burrell still being involved in the program. I would like to thank the Master Fruit Research Farm crew for helping us along the way, Clemson University Peach team for their support, and special thanks to Dr. Oki and Richie for providing their material at the beginning of the program that was used to start crossing and include diversity in the material in the breed. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions.